Good morning. At the New York Times, I did many jobs, including a job that put me on the first newsroom business side team to help come up with a circulation marketing strategy. So many years later, when I was named the first social media editor, the whole reader thing, the whole user thing, I got that. And what I'd like to talk to you about today are two things. And then I'd like to ask you a question, because I'm hoping that everyone here can help me in my new job as Vice President of Journalism at the Knight Foundation. And I'm asking all of our friends watching to help me as well. But first, what I wanted to talk to you about this morning is not dissecting engagement, but deepening engagement. And one of the things that I learned as the first social media editor at the New York Times is one of the most powerful ways that we can deepen engagement with our users, with our readers, is by involving them in the creative process. Now, many of you are doing this in newsrooms today, and I thought this morning what I would do is just talk and describe three just great examples. Given that it's 8 a.m., I thought this was an appropriate slide to begin with. This is a project that was produced by WNYC. And if you're looking for inspiration, I would strongly recommend that you go to WNYC and see how they have been engaging with their audience in so many creative, terrific ways. For one thing, if you think about it, we heard this yesterday from St. Louis Public Radio. Going to your platform's strength. That was just a great example. So at WNYC, one of their most powerful forces is Brian Lair, who has a call-in show. So many of their engagement projects begin with an old-fashioned radio call-in show. And here is one of them. This interactive was built from answers from more than 2,800 people. So that's a pretty good sample. And it generated a lot of conversation on the radio and online. One of my most favorite projects in the last couple of years at the New York Times has been a project that Elizabeth Rosenthal, who was a physician and a fabulous reporter, has been working on. What she's been doing is really trying to get at the costs of healthcare. And why is it more expensive to deliver a baby in one state than another? Why is a colonoscopy more expensive in one state than another? So one amazing tool that she used to produce fantastic data and anecdotes and stories are the readers of the New York Times. So by engaging the readers of the New York Times, Elizabeth has been able to not only produce incredible stories like one after another, but our readers are seeing their stories in the New York Times. And again, no better way to deepen engagement than to get your readers involved. One of the other things that we talked a lot yesterday about using social media, one of the things that really helped Elizabeth as well is working with the social media team and working with Facebook. Amanda Zamora, who here knows Amanda Zamora? Or follow Amanda Zamora, AmZam on Twitter. She is, in my opinion, doing some of the most amazing work at the center of this discussion about involving users, involving readers in the reporting, in the creative process. And one of the stories where she was one of the first people to use a Facebook group to help get information about medical malpractice for a medical malpractice series. Very, very tricky topic, and I have to say it was just handled incredibly well by ProPublica. And if you look at this post was just recently, March 29th. This is by Charles Ornstein, who is continuing to use this Facebook group to not only tell readers there, hey, my story just appeared in the Washington Post, check it out, but see how he ends his post. He says the older generation drugs cost the program $286 million in 2013. Can we afford it? Can we not afford it? And that generated a whole conversation on Facebook. Additionally, ProPublica is also using mobile apps. We heard a little bit about that yesterday, about how they can be very powerful for distribution. Again, this is an example of how to use these very powerful tools to deepen engagement with your users. And they use the WhatsApp app. I can never say that properly. Maybe it's just early in the morning. And so what they did, how they used it is their reporter, T. Christian Miller, what he did was he would post updates, and that's quite intimate, to get a text message from a reporter. And he would begin these weekly posts. He would include in his weekly posts a question, and then at the end of the week would share the answers and those questions with the audience. So another example, ProPublica used Reddit. Another series that they did looked at how students were being forcibly restrained or secluded at school. By Heather Vogel, the reporter here, she put her query out on Reddit. So as you can see, there are multiple ways for you to reach out and engage with users on your site and off your site. Some of the fun projects over the last few years at the New York Times, I just thought I would share here because they're very simple, and they were just been fun ways to, again, involve users in the creative process. This is the Mood Train, and here we tried to generate a conversation around the healthcare debate. It was a complicated debate, as you may recall, and people had a lot to say, but it was a very difficult conversation to manage because it was so complex. And this is an example of what one of our developers built. We called it the bento box, so that people could go into different boxes and you could see how many people were in a box to have a conversation about healthcare. This was one of my most famous projects while I was social media editor because it caught us completely by surprise. We had said, gee, what would happen if we just said to people around the world, we would all like you to take a photograph at 11 o'clock Eastern time on a Sunday morning and send it to us. And we called it the moment in time. And it was one of the first times that we were also not just using our own platform, but using Facebook and using Twitter to solicit images. So what happened was we received so many photos that it crashed shortly afterwards. And so that became a very frustrating user experience. And then what we also found is because we had put the call out on Facebook, we had put the call out on Twitter, that many people were sharing their images with us on Twitter, on Facebook. So on that Sunday, we made a decision, well, we're just gonna share them back. So we spent like the entire day sharing on our Facebook page and on our Twitter account all of the different photos that came about. So let's talk about photos for a minute. One of the easiest and simplest ways to begin to get users, to get your readers involved in the creative process is just to begin with simple questions. Everybody who's ever watched a weatherman in Missouri or anywhere else north of Missouri, not in Miami, I'm finding, has seen the old yardstick right? In the snow. So what we're finding is if you begin with very simple requests, you can begin to not train your users, but to encourage them and to know that they're invited to participate in the creative process. There is a magazine, a news magazine in Germany, where they have developed this mobile app where they began soliciting weather pictures, and they began soliciting like very simple, like send us, pictures of your puppies. And I'll tell you a story about puppies at the New York Times too, and what can happen. And so now, because they have so many people who have this app, who first began like sending in like weather photos and puppy photos. Now these people are sharing with them video and images from relevant news stories. So there's huge opportunity, especially as we see so much user-generated content and so much really strong user-generated content now across the web. Now, about the puppies. So this is what can happen. So at the New York Times, even your puppy has to be perfect, okay? It's just one of those things. And we did invite people to send in their puppies, and they did. And some puppies didn't make it. They just didn't make it into the gallery. So, just a little warning, always respect your users, always respect your readers, because on Flickr popped up puppy fail. And all the people who didn't get their puppies in the New York Times created their own gallery. So with that, I would love to take any questions that you might have about deepening engagement, which I think is the next step, beyond dissecting engagement. And secondly, as I said, I would love your help in my new job at the Knight Foundation. I would love to know how you think that the Knight Foundation, how we can help you advance journalism in the digital age, as we say regularly on NPR. So 4 of the areas that we're interested in exploring, and we'd like to know if there are maybe more areas that you think that we should be exploring. 1, we're really interested in this topic here, and that's why I came here to Missouri, and I'm just so impressed with the quality of the presenters and the quality of the conversation. So we're very interested in engagement. We're very interested in supporting experiments in newsrooms around the country. I've been traveling to newsrooms around the country in the last couple of months, learning a lot about what newsrooms need. And one area where I'm hearing again and again and again, we need more help understanding analytics. We know that we're measuring a lot of things, but are we measuring the right things? We need help with engagement, because we all know that engagement is a path to sustainability. If you have an audience, you can do something with that. If you don't have an audience, well, then you have a problem. New forms of storytelling. We heard Amy Webb yesterday talk about there has not been a lot of innovation in terms of new forms of storytelling. So we're very interested in learning about new forms of storytelling that might be taking place in your newsrooms, or perhaps that's an area where we can experiment in your newsroom. We're interested in helping support training and learning and community around digital transformation, and would love your ideas on that. And of course, the Knight Foundation has a long commitment to freedom of expression, FOIA, and will continue, of course, to support projects in that area. So in my few minutes left, actually I have 5 minutes left, I would love to just take any suggestions or questions.
Okay, and we have mics around the room, so just raise your hand and we will bring one to you.
Austin Federa, KBIA. It's a pretty easy value proposition to go to a news director and say, I want to post on the internet to get stories of potential abuses of children in the school system. it's a little harder to go to them and say, I want to collect pictures of puppies because somehow this is going to further the news gathering portion of the organization.
Got it.
Especially in old media organizations, which you have some experience, how do those conversations go, and how do you find best to engage with people who say, puppies just aren't the business of the newsroom?
Well, this is what I would say. I would say that the most effective way to engage journalists around engagement and around social media is keep it tied to the journalism. So that is the first step that I found when I was the first social media editor. The first way that I was able to get journalists on Twitter is to explain to them that it's an opportunity for them to create their own personal wire service. And that if you're a political reporter and you're dropping into Ohio to cover what's happening on the ground in Ohio, there's no better way to read the clips than to make yourself a Twitter list of everyone who's talking about politics in Ohio. So I am a huge proponent as a first step showing the value to the journalism when you're talking about social media and when you're talking about engagement. The reason why I cited Elizabeth Rosenthal's story is there was nothing more exciting for me as someone who just cares so passionately about our readers and involving our readers in the reporting process than to hear Elizabeth speak so passionately to our colleagues at the New York Times about how engaging with readers, listening, reading the comments helped produce one valuable, insightful nugget of information for the reporting. So that would be my my advice. We haven't done puppies recently, but I had to tell you the puppy fail story as a way to actually tell the story about showing respect to your community is so important.
You said the moment in time thing failed or crashed the servers initially. Have you done it? Did you do it again? And if you did, how did you keep it from crashing the servers again?
Well, one of the reasons why it crashed the servers, and this was early days, and yes, the technology has changed dramatically. It was the first experiment in which we not only did a call out on our own site, but we also used our Facebook page. We created an event around it. We also used our Twitter account. And we had, quite frankly, had not anticipated such a massive response at 11 o'clock on a Sunday morning, you know? But so the lesson was the reach that our social media accounts gave us, you know, to reach people all over the world. So yes, the technology has changed dramatically. And the other lesson learned was we realized people didn't want to wait until we built this incredibly beautiful thing, and I'll send you the link so you can see it. It's like stunning. They wanted, you know, to see pictures right away. So that's why we use our social accounts to then share that.
Today, the Knight Foundation just announced their city's challenge winners.
Yes.
Civic innovators, getting people involved in the neighborhood. I'm wondering how you can link what you are doing with social media and journalism to kind of city initiatives and neighborhood initiatives to really get people engaged on that level and enact some change.
Well, Carol Coletta is the vice president for that program, and we are very focused on working together because we all know that social media is not only an enormously powerful tool for journalists, but for community leaders, for people, for ordinary people wanting to create change right in their community. In May, we have the Media Learning Seminar, and I'd be happy to share information about that, where we bring community leaders, foundations from all over the country to Miami to learn from some of the very top experts in social media, including social media, including Srinivasan from former Dean of Students at Columbia will be joining us to share his social media tips. So there's tremendous recognition that there is incredible value in social media for those tools. And I just want to also just say one other thing. Comments. Gotta love the comments, but you gotta get into the conversation. And the research shows when you get into the conversation, you and your journalists change the conversation. And one of the things that has been distressing to me is to see the number of news organizations that are looking to ditch comments. And it just seems to be not a very wise investment. It's not a very wise thing to do. It seems that it would be much smarter to make an investment. The Knight Foundation has invested, speaking of investments, a significant investment with the Washington Post and the New York Times in Mozilla to develop a commenting platform that will be open source and available to news organizations around the country. So we're hoping that we'll get that done in the coming 18 months, and that will provide, hopefully, a solution to some people. So my email, Preston, Preston, at knightfoundation.org. Please send me any suggestions that you have for experiments that we should be doing, ideas that we should be considering, areas of focus that you think that we need to be looking at.
Terrific.
Thank you.
Jennifer, thank you very much.